And rolling. All right. Yeah, let's get into it. Welcome to Footnotes, a behind-the-scenes look at what we value and why it matters here at Foothill Church in Glendora, California. I'm your host, Ethan Bailey. Erica will be back with us in a couple of weeks, but in the meantime, we have some friends here. Lucas Parks, you know him well. Hey, Lucas.
How's it going? Yeah.
And then our dear friend, all the way from Belfast, Northern Ireland, the one and only Andrew Elder. Andrew, it's so good to have you here.
It's great to be here.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ethan.
For sure. Like, so you've been on Footnotes before.
I'm a regular.
Yeah, you're a regular, one of our earlier hosts, but it was over Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
So stoked to have you here in person.
That's
It's
great.
Sunny Southern California. How's your time been in California so far?
It's been great. I feel like my body is finally adjusted
Good.
to, like, it's caught up with my brain. You know what I mean? No, it was good. It was good to be in church yesterday.
Awesome.
And Covenant Partners lunch and all that good stuff. So
Yeah,
it's great.
for sure.
It's been great.
What have you gotten to do so far?
Lucas took me to Venice Beach,
Okay.
which was really cool.
Yeah.
Some people watching.
Yeah. It was interesting. to say the least.
Interesting is a nice way of saying describing Venice.
We were downtown LA and had some good tacos in Grand Central Market, Hollywood, Rodeo Drive, all that good stuff. So
All the touristy stuff.
yeah. Because
that's
you see these places in movies and on TV and stuff, and it's kind of cool to see it in
Yeah.
person.
Yeah, did you see the Hollywood sign?
Did see the Hollywood
Yeah.
sign.
How was that for you?
It's cool. I mean, I did have a wee mouse. I surprised myself because I don't really, I'm not. I kind of think I'm like above, like, that touristy stuff.
Yeah.
No, so I was like, that's pretty cool.
It's funny.
Pretty iconic.
It's like, hey, it's iconic.
It's
you
super
know.
iconic, but I've gone and like you can do the hike near there, and it's kind of underwhelming in the sense that it's a lot further away than you kind of realize. But I'm glad you
Yeah.
enjoyed that.
It was fun.
Yeah. How is Venice Beach these days? I heard it's a little bit cleaned up. And
Yeah,
a
I
little
think
better.
so. Yeah, I was there kind of right during the pandemic, and it's definitely more. I mean, I don't know that I'd ever call Venice Beach clean, but it's it's not what it was before. Yeah, so it's
Yeah.
kind of back to normal, I
Okay.
guess.
Yeah. But normal in the sense like there's still some good characters there.
oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We saw this guy, like the one-man band guy.
Oh, that was pretty.
He was really impressive. He was playing guitar, bass guitar, keyboard, drums, and singing all at the same time.
Yeah.
So
That is
he
impressive.
was really good.
Yeah, we need to get him to join the worship team. Maybe.
Yeah, it'll be,
Invite him to church.
He's all you need.
Yeah, he'd be good for like prayer nights and stuff like that. Yeah, I'm assuming Andrew, during your time, Lucas maybe took some pictures, like on his phone or anything. Or
It has been known to happen.
Yeah. What is that called when Lucas is taking pictures? I know you and some other mates back.
Yeah,
in
we invented
Northern
this.
Ireland.
We actually had it's called Lookstagram,
Lookstagram.
right? And you would have, it was, you'd have points if you'd get points for seeing him doing it, but you'd get extra points for like actually capturing a photo of him taking a Lookstagram.
Yeah. So how do you get some points? Like,
Oh, if you see him in the moment, you get points, but you get extra points if you capture him on camera.
got it. Okay.
Taking
Okay.
It's like
Yeah.
Inception. People
yeah.
have pictures of me taking pictures.
Yeah, there's a show in the UK called Gogglebox, and it's basically you're watching people watch TV. So it's just normal people and they watch TV and they're talking about it, but then you're watching them watch TV. That's the stage that society has got to, right? We're just like, it's kind of like that where Lookstagram is Instagram and Luke doing Instagram.
Yeah, so ever since I heard about this, I've tried. The first time I failed miserably. I think I actually sent it to you and John.
You did, yeah.
I just like Lucas just put his phone down. He was blurry, walking around. I'm like, no, I
You gotta
missed
be
it.
quick. You gotta be quick.
Yeah.
So, do you have any tips on like what to look for?
You have to watch the setup. It's all about the setup. It's like, is this coffee mug in just the right position, or once you see him adjusting something,
Once you see him fiddling
watch
with
the setup,
things.
man. Watch the setup.
Yeah,
You're a rookie. You'll get there. eventually, don't worry.
I have gotten one. It was good, but I'm continually trying, and I'm actually surprised, Lucas, you didn't get one just like a minute ago when we were getting ready to
I
set
know.
up.
I should have.
So I will say I was ready though to get a picture. So I was like, this is gonna happen.
See, I knew it was gonna happen. I'm like, no, gotta be more spontaneous.
Yeah, for sure.
It's like hunters whenever like the animal gets wise to the hunter's movements, so like they change their behavior. Now he's like adjusting his behavior.
Yeah.
You don't get caught.
He's gotten faster. He's gotten fast. Where I think he has some settings preset on his camera. He just knows, just pulls it out, goes. So yeah, we'll get him though. We'll get him. So you got to enjoy Venice, and I heard you're going to a Dodgers game.
Yeah,
Is
we're
that
going there
fun?
on
Tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
It's
Have you ever
playoffs
been
game.
to a baseball game?
No, I've been to minor league
Okay.
when I was a teenager, but never been
Yeah.
to like a major league baseball games. That'll be great.
exciting.
Plus the playoffs. I've heard that's really exciting.
Yeah, that's honestly.
I love
really
sport,
cool.
man. I love sport. I love if it's two people competing at anything. Like I'm in
For sure.
So that'll be good.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you're doing that, and you got to hang out with some of the old Ireland teams. So we sent a couple teams out.
Yeah.
Got to do that.
Yeah, that was fun.
How was that, getting to catch up with some of those guys and gals?
That was great. That was great yesterday. Because you kind of go in this thing into this partnership as a pastor, right? And at the start it is like, maybe like church leaders, elders, pastors talking to each other. But then what has happened over the years with you guys being with us for so long is we have real relationships with real people in Foothill and in Village South. You know what I mean? It's just crazy. It's really cool. It's really cool. So, it's really great to like, even just talking to Sheila, and she's like asking about my kids, because when she visited Ireland the first time you guys were there, it was Abigail was our daughter was like, she was less than 1 year old, and now she's in school and stuff like that. So yeah, it was great. Really, really good.
Well, yeah, it was fun to get to hang out even with that team and catch up a little bit and hear more from you. And we'll actually get to hear more from you throughout this episode. And as we kind of catch up and hear a little bit more about how Village South is doing, how you've been doing, and kind of even just how this partnership is continuing to look for us. So excited to dive into that. But first, we're going to take a little bit of a break. We got something we want to tell you about. One of our desires here at Foothill is to see each person grow in their understanding of God's Word. One of the ways we do that here is through our Sunday seminars. On November 6th, we'll be joined by Jared Wilson as he expands on the concept of speaking the truth in love. He will explore questions like, what happens when we fail on either side, and how might we work towards embracing both? What are the real aims of being tactful and winsome on cultural issues? And what is the aim of being truthful and clear? So join us for the seminar on November 6th at 5 p.m. as we all seek to be more like Christ in this area. You can learn more online at foothill.church. Well, hey, we at Foothill Church, we value sending the gospel out, both locally and globally. That's why we do our Send campaign every year. Part of that is raising funds to see more churches planted. So we're currently partnered with 12 churches. Village South is one of those churches. And so, Lucas, can you actually just real quick, just take a minute and just even explain a little bit more and summarize, like, how did we get here today? Like, the three of us are sitting at this table.
Yeah.
Some guys from Northern Ireland are here. You're in the U.S. now. Andrew's planted a church, the church he started. So kind of just re-explain, kind of catch us up to speed here. How did this all happen?
Yeah. Well, we were planting Village. At that time, it was just Village Church. Now it's East because there's more than one. But we were planting, and we were in those very, very early days. We hadn't launched publicly yet or anything. It really was a Bible study in my living room with my wife and I, my brother and his then girlfriend, now wife, and then another couple as well that were dating, now married in the time. And so we were just gathering folks for Bible study and hanging out and doing different stuff. And then my brother actually introduced me to Andrew. They were friends, and I remember it was at is it Cinnamon on a coffee shop on the Strand Mills Road, and this is the first time we ever met, and he had introduced me. This is my friend Andrew or whatever, and so Andrew started kind of coming along to Bible study with his again then wife, now no girlfriend now. He only had one wife.
Still wife.
Still wife.
Yeah. So it's just funny, like life stages, like marrying all like couples and stuff through that time and that era. So really, he was a part of helping us plant Village, really from the beginning almost. So like really within a couple months of us doing Bible study. So Andrew's kind of been with us through all phases of that, from meeting in a pub, and then we rented out a church hall for a while, and just as the Lord continued to bring people, and we eventually had another missional community that you guys started hosting, and then as we moved over to the east side of Belfast, as we were given use of a building, we still had a heart for South Belfast. That's where we had started, and there really was a gap that was there, and so. But we had our gathering had kind of moved east. People, as they were getting married, had started to move east a little bit as well. And but we really did have a heart for South. And as Andrew really kind of became more and more involved in our leadership, and went through even like eldership training, and then essentially wanted to study more formally with seminary. And so we helped him do that and really kind of brought him on as a church planting resident with the idea of when he was done, seeing if we could maybe plant back in South where we started. Yeah. And so that's really where Village South was kind of born out of that. And obviously Andrew was cutting his teeth more and more at Village East and preaching and leading in a variety of different ways and preparing for that. And then, we sent, 30, 35 folks with Andrew back over to South in that time. And so that's kind of how Village South was born, out of what is now Village East and in different parts of the city. And then somewhere along the way there, Chris Lewis, I was director for Acts 29 in Ireland. And so he, Foothill started to get involved in supporting that work more broadly in Ireland. And then as we planted, specifically in supporting Village South. And so, that's really how Foothill kind of came together with Village at the time. And so thought I'd be there forever, and we'd be. So I got to bring him over here.
So did we.
Man.
Anyway,
moving along. So it was great, and that partnership really kind of developed with Chris and Foothill, and then obviously has expanded into Village South as well. And it's great to see those kind of relationships continue that aren't contingent on me being there or anything in their own right. It's been really great. Yeah,
it's been really cool to be a part of this partnership and get to see that. And I think just for our church, it's like a good reminder as well. Like, wow, like the gospel and God is just so much bigger than we could even ever imagine. And this is always a good reminder. But I think even in the season, we kind of started this whole, like, we're a part of church plants. Like, Foothill Church is a church plant. Sure. So this is like a newer concept to us. And so I think it was a really awesome, joyful experience to like live kind of vicariously through Village South in a way of like watching you guys plant. And we got to like support in certain ways and be a part of that. But I think that was a really cool catalyst for Foothill Church, to see that.
Yeah, but you use the words live vicariously. And I think I said this in church yesterday, or maybe on some of the video you shot in Belfast, but it's not living vicariously. Like, we're partners in this thing. Yeah. And, Foothill, like, you guys are part of planting the church in Belfast, and as you support our network, like, I'm on the board now of Acts 29 Ireland, planting churches in Ireland across this tiny island in the Atlantic, 7,000 miles away from where we are right now. So you guys are doing that. Like, it's not that you're living vicariously. This is what God has called you to in his grand scheme of advancing his kingdom across the world. And it's really, like, we should all feel like so privileged to be part of this thing and just playing our wee part. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's cool, man.
For sure. Yeah. Well, tell us a little bit more. I mean, so Village South launched 4 years ago this month.
4 years ago on the 7th of October.
Yeah. The last couple of years, kind of normal, smooth sailing, right? Nothing notable.
Yeah, it's been great. I can't.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about that. How was that for you guys, and kind of how are you doing now?
Yeah. It was weird. It was a rough kind of time, if I'm honest. We were just about a year and a half into, probably less than a year and a half into the church plant when COVID hit. And I remember chatting to a friend of ours in Belfast, and this was March, whenever the government locked everything down, and we were going, imagine this lasts for like 2 months. Like, can you imagine if this lasts until May? And we were like, no way, that'd be crazy. And then you're 2 years out of your life. So that was hard, and I think at the beginning there was that human desire in me that really wanted to, we got this church plant and we're gathering some momentum, so let's just kind of keep, as we go online, let's keep moving forward. In the end, we were kind of almost reabsorbed by Village East, at least on our online stuff. I mean, obviously you're still doing your pastoral care with the people in your church plant, but all our online services were all joined together, and I mean, praise God for people who are wiser than me, because I would have run myself into the ground if I was trying to do that online by myself every Sunday, with maybe a handful of volunteers or whatever. So at the beginning, I found it hard to see what God was doing there, if I'm honest. You're kind of thinking, God, why are you like halting momentum? Why are you slowing this thing down? What's going on there? But as time has passed, I mean, there was a lot of change with both villages during that time. Like, I mean, this guy ends up, you know, moving over here to you, which we're so thankful for. And I think if things would have been harder if God hadn't really allowed Village South to have a wee bit of a safety net during that time. I mean, you know, we're still 4 years old. Like, Village South is a toddler, you know. Like, we're still, you know, can't really walk very well, and certainly can't run. So so it really feels it since January this year, 2022, that we've really started to plant a church, and God has been so faithful. Like, we've installed our first elder, who isn't me, so we now have a plurality of elders, even though it only has two of us. So that's great. And we've seen, like, I mean, having me out of the picture for like the better part of 3 months really has allowed leaders to be raised up, and people just, you know, people step up, and people have stepped up, and God is maturing people, and you see people that you're like, oh, I'm not the only one who cares for this church, you know. Like, there are people who love it just as much as I do, and that's a really, really special thing. And yeah, over COVID we lost people. We had some people who walked away, and I think there's probably not a church in the world that didn't happen to, right?
Absolutely.
But you know, we also gained a lot of people. God saved people, which is crazy.
Praise God.
Yeah, praise God.
That's awesome.
And I think the key part of that, or the key piece of the puzzle, is that we figured out who our core is. You know, who's really bought into this thing. Who's, you know, because it's really hard to tell that stuff online, right? But this year has been like, okay, these are the people who are really committed here. Here we have a good, solid, like, membership. Like, you guys have covenant members, we have covenant partners, same thing, I guess. And we figured out who the core of our church is, and the faithful ones, and that's allowed us then to, like, you know, be more bold in ministry and mission and in our community, because you have, you know who your team, you know who your guys are, right? You know, well, guys and girls, you know who they are. And so yeah, it's been a roller coaster, I'd say, over the last 3 years. But God has been so good. Yeah. Like, we're baptizing people straight after, like, as soon as we come back from COVID, which is great.
That's awesome.
You know?
Yeah.
I was just struck too when you were talking there. You know, you mentioned like a safety net during those like hard and difficult times. Like, you have Village East, you know, your, you know, mother church essentially, a church like Foothill, with financial support, and I know of churches that didn't make it through, you know, those years and had to close, and a lot of that is largely because they didn't have that extra like support system of around them. And so yeah, I just think it's another reason why, you know, having these kind of partnerships is so helpful to help make difficult decisions. You've got counsel, wisdom, but actual like financial support to get through those difficult times as well.
Yeah, it was cool because back in 2018, I got to be on that trip, and so we got to see you guys start, and it's super encouraging to be back. So back in May 2022.
Yeah, but you didn't paint the gates again.
We did not paint the gates.
Come on, man. It's been 4 years.
We did look at them. Yeah, next trip.
So anybody wants to come to from Foothill to Ireland, paint some metal gates, come on.
It was a whole ordeal, but they looked great for a season. But then to be able to go back and just to see you guys thriving, like, no, we weren't there on the ground with you guys, but so like encouraged to see like, hey, there's this big gap of like just hardship that your church faced, just like so many other churches, but just to see that you guys are, you know, happy and healthy and doing your thing, it was super cool to see. So, Lucas, speaking of those trips a little bit, we've gone to a couple, and we actually got to visit you when you were still at Village East. This last trip we took out to Ireland, you got to lead, and we actually got to visit some more churches throughout the island of Ireland. Why do we do those trips? Like, what is the goal for those? And
I think they're multifold. One, I think what we've talked about, like to develop those relationships just beyond leaders, and so you know, that people in the church can actually go and see like brothers and sisters in a different context. I think part of that too is like learning. So there's a mutual learning that happens that's there. And so people going can actually see a different context. How do you contextualize the gospel in a way that is different from my context, but it's the same gospel, it's the same work, it's the same mission of the kingdom, and yet it looks a little bit different. And I think there's things we can learn in that, particularly from European context, which is probably a little more secular than even the U.S. In that way. So I think that's really helpful. And I think too, just that being able to go, it's your prayers are much more informed. So even to be able to bring back video and I mean, that's one thing that is nice about social media. There's a lot that's bad about that, but even just being able to see in real time our folks being able to follow the story of our partners, I think that informs their prayers a lot better. That's there. And it's not, back in the day before, global travel was easier and, social media and the internet even, these missionaries were just people that you saw once every 4 or 5 years, and, you just relied on a newsletter that got mailed through, whatever. So, but here it's much more, life on life. Like I can actually see what's happening, and I can go and visit there and feel like I'm much more connected and a part of that. And so it's not just, well, we just write this check and send it off into the ether somewhere. It's like, oh no, this is going to Belfast. I've been there. I know the Ormeau neighborhood that they're planting in. I've been to East Belfast and in those places, or I've at least seen that through the people that have come back and told those stories or video. And so it feels like a much more real, tangible kind of partnership that's there. And so look forward to taking those kind of trips on a regular basis. So, yeah.
What's that like for you, Andrew? I mean, I know the first time you were probably like stoked to have like 15 people show up because but
we were 4 days away from lunch or something, or
about a week, yeah.
And the guy was still like putting the carpet down or something.
Yeah, we went in. And
I remember your faces. It was like, oh, there's a lot of work to do.
Yeah, and dude, we were so ecstatic to be able to help. Like it was so cool to help. It was a cool experience.
Really good.
So obviously, when you have a group of 15 people come in, and there's like some like labor work to do, that makes sense. But on a trip like what we just recently did, what's it like for like 15 people to roll into your town and just to visit, and how does that impact you?
Yeah, I mean, one point to pick up on what you said, look, is in like your prayers are informed, and it's not just like, oh, you see what's happening. It's you have relationship. Like there's like I said earlier, like there's people in Village South who are friends, like genuine friends with people in Foothill. One of the members of our church, we call him Big Liam. Everybody gets a prefix in Ireland. It's just the way we do stuff. And he's a big guy. He's a gentle giant, and he was like, yeah, I was chatting to so-and-so from Foothill the other day, and I was like, what? You're like chatting to him? Like just chatting away on like Facebook Messenger or something. I was like, it's so cool. And so it's not just that your prayers are informed, which they are, but it's prayers informed and that with this relationship. And Liam was talking about something that was happening in Foothill that I didn't know about. It was so great. So I think that's it. When we look at how the church, grew in the New Testament, like from Judea, Samaria to the ends of the earth, and you see this kind of movement happening. You don't see like supporter and supportee relationships. The language that is used, especially by the Apostle Paul over and over again, is partner in the gospel. Philippians 1, he goes heavy on this. He's like, I thank God every time I remember you for your partnership in the gospel. And this is what it feels like, right? It feels like partnership. And I'd love to do the other way. I'd love to bring a group from Village South over here, I
love that.
Right? Yeah, be like, get Big Liam over here,
and take him to Venice Beach.
Yeah, take him to, hey, he'd be lifting if he was in Venice Beach. Muscle Beach, he'd be, it is that, like, it's just the partnership. It's the real sense that we're in this kingdom thing together. We have a common mission. I don't know, I was thinking about this, and I wanted to ask you, because you've been twice. Like, what does it mean for you to come to Ireland and Belfast and
turn the tables on the host?
So that's great.
I asked the questions here, not you.
I think it's always like a huge like perspective shift and reminder. Like I love like what I loved about Village South specifically. We got to the first trip we took.
Hey, it is the best one, isn't it?
It's lovely. We got to stay in the same apartment, or I think you guys call it flat, the whole time. And so it was really cool to just be a part of the community for that full week. And it just kind of like reminded me of the opportunities to be missional just in those little things day to day, because that's where you guys were at. That's what you had to do. It's just, I think it's so easy for us in our context is just to show up to church and just to do church and get out of there. But in you guys in your context, you're like, no, we got to build a church. And so just seeing your guys' heart and desire for how you're doing missional communities and trying to invite others in there, and just being strategic of like, even just your culture sets up for this with there too. Just like needing to go to the grocery store more often than we probably do here.
Yeah.
Because like preservatives and whatnot, like quite literally.
Also, our packages aren't quite as big.
Yeah.
You're not like,
yeah. You guys have those.
You're
little,
buying 6 gallons of laundry
yeah.
detergent or
You guys
something.
have those little Tesco marts kind of on each corner. We have Costco's on each corner.
Yeah.
And so stuff like that was a real cool kind of perspective shift for me, and kind of really encouraging. But even just the reminder that on this last trip I took, we went to City Church Dublin, Calvary Lochray, Village East, Village South, like all these churches, and then just finding these like different ways to relate with other people there. I was reminded, like, there's a saying like, oh, it's a small world, And it's like, no, the world's big, but God is just bigger. And that's what that was my big takeaway from this last trip. Just as we felt really connected with people, and even literally some people were like, oh yeah, I've been to the, your area. Like I might've went to your church when I was little. It was some church in the area, so stuff like that, was just really cool and encouraging. Yeah. So those trips are huge to be able to take.
That's great. I'm going to use that line, by the way.
Yeah, you can have
the world's big.
Yeah, you can.
Bigger.
Yeah, I'll sell it to you.
Yeah.
Just kidding. You can have it. You can have it. I'm sure.
Yeah, that's the Californian in it. You got to sell it, trademark it, and sell it.
Monetize this.
For sure. Yeah. So we hit a lot on just the benefits of the relationship stuff, and I think a lot of people don't realize that. But one of the ones that we do talk about and hear a lot more is just the financial side of things. And so just as a reminder for people, like what does that allow you to do? Even just church planners in general, like that support. Like how does it tangibly help the effort of church planting and keep those going?
Yeah. Before I answer that, I just want to say I think it's great that that it's a real conversation. That there's no, I guess maybe in my culture, people want to shy away from talking about money. But the reality is it's a conversation that needs to happen because my kids need shoes. Yeah. That sounds like a bleak. Yeah. My kids need shoes.
Yeah. No. Did you look at the camera? Yeah. But for sure, though, you're right.
But it's a real conversation, and it does have, to get to your question, it does have real consequences. It does have, my kids do need shoes. I have rent to pay and all these kind of different things. But apart from that, so I guess from the very beginning, one of the things we talked about when Lucas brought me on part-time as like a church planting resident, we were looking at like, what would it look like to be bivocational, but at the same time I was in seminary, which then turned into doing a master's as well and all that kind of stuff. And so to try and be a church planting resident, to have a young family, to be in seminary and then working a job at the same time, I mean, that might have killed me, you know. But when Foothill came on, you guys have been supporting us from the very beginning. That allowed me to put my time and effort into both those things, and then continue that, like to put all of my effort into Village South, you know. And I think that's probably the realest return, you know, the most tangible return is that there hasn't been a day since, you know, there hasn't been a day since I started on this journey that I've had something else that's been, you know, pulling away my time. It has been the church plant. But then real things like, you know, during COVID, for example, being able to help pay someone's rent, or being able to, I mean, people were out of work, you know, and sure there was, you know, the government were trying to help some, but there was real need there, and we were able to do that. So I think things like that is where it's not just kind of you guys are throwing money into the ether. It affects real people's lives, right? You know, there was someone in the church and they it was that situation where they were just like, I don't know how I'm going to pay my rent, you know? And we were able to say, well, we can cover that for this month and next month if you need, and all that kind of stuff. And that's because of, you know, your generosity. So I suppose even beyond that, like, we rent a building that, you know, you guys have seen on videos and you've been in, and that's a huge blessing to us now, because it's not just a space to meet on Sundays, which it is, it's not just a space to have like any like prayer meetings, which we use it for, and midweek stuff and all that kind of stuff. But we're not using that as like we just see it as like another like ministry tool for the community. It's another way of reaching the community. So because we can pay the rent on that, because we can keep the lights on, and because we can heat the place, which isn't a factor here, but it is in Belfast.
I think too, just real quickly to add to that too, in America, when we think about church plants and like their timeline of self-sustaining, here it's like, well, like 3 years is what we'd like to see, maybe 4 or whatever. But in Europe, that's probably more closer to like 8 to 10 years, just because of the culture that's there. And so you're dealing with secular people, so you don't have a lot of people like, hey, we've just moved here, we gave to our we normally give to our church anyway, and now we just start that. Like, it's a process of people who are just not used to doing that at all, and then discipling them into that. And so that just takes longer. So I think having a longer on ramp where you have financial kind of structure around you allows churches.
I think there was I actually think there was some real data came. I think like a friend of ours in Europe, he's an English dude, and he's done some real research on that, and he's now talking not just 8 to 10 years, but like the 10 to 15 year bracket in Europe. And if you're thinking about, is this church gonna make it, in inverted commas, like you're like, we're not gonna try this for 3 years and give it a go. We're actually gonna commit to this for 10 to 15 years, because that's how long it can take that to be established. And so it's not that our people aren't generous at all, I don't think. I think it's, like I said, it's a discipleship thing, right? And it's
well, we're about 10 weeks into this campaign, and we started mid-August, and so we're here in October now, and there's 10 more weeks to go. We're going to be talking about this every week. And honestly, I know it could become like white noise for people.
Sure.
Probably like some listening fatigue. It was just like more of this, Lucas, how would you encourage just our church just to continue to dig our heels deeper into this, to follow through on maybe our pledges, or maybe someone has been considering, giving or participating. How would you encourage the church to not let this be just white noise, or, it's just to help us to continue to have that zeal for this campaign throughout the
for sure. I mean, I understand that sometimes you're like, oh, send campaign again, but I think it's a perspective how we actually like think about that. So to realize that we are a part of the kingdom of God, and that's what God has called us to, that we are to be ambassadors for him and for his kingdom. And so I think the temptation is that we get a little short-sighted, and we think, oh, my Christian life is like here in my church, and God has called us to much more than that. And so every week when we have these like snapshots and videos in that way, it's not like a commercial for giving. It's not like a charity for the local dog pound or whatever commercial on TV.
Just 10 cents.
For just 10 cents, you can like be like, no, this is actually the work that we're
the church.
But this is like, I get a view into like the outpost of the kingdom of God, and whether that's in Boston, Massachusetts, whether that's up in Sanger, California, or Ontario, or over in Ireland and Scotland, wherever these things are taking place. Like, I hope we're eagerly watching and going, man, this is what I get to be a part of in that. And it's not just a commercial trying to like get my money, but this is what God has like called us to participate in at whatever level, right? So and I do think that's the challenge. Like, okay, I might not be able to give whatever it is, like however the Lord has blessed me. Am I stewarding those resources well? And part of that is to look beyond my own field of vision right here, and to participate in what the Lord is doing around the world. And I think that's I love the vision of the Send campaign in that way, because we can pool our money together and actually make an impact in ways that just me and my own might not, have the same kind of impact within that. And so to be able to every week get to see what's happening there. And so I mean, listen, that we've all talked about the cost of living crunch and inflation and all of those sorts of things, and I understand that for sure. And yet, I think the Lord does, in His goodness and kindness to us. Well, I mean, we're looking at parables and things like that. Like, those of us that steward what He's given us well, He continues to bless us for that, and those very reasons. And so I would, if people are listening to this and haven't gotten involved yet, this is your opportunity to do that, and to really get to participate and partner. All the language that we've been using in this, it's not just like, making a donation to some charity, but this is the kingdom work of God moving and bringing people from death to life, from darkness to light, and to actually be a part of that in real tangible kind of ways. So, and it's not just finances. Obviously, we've talked a lot about how that works out in other ways, but it costs money to do ministry in real ways. And so, to be able to have opportunities to sustain those things in new works, to see new works take shape, and to actually walk in obedience to what the Lord has called us to be a part of is really important. And so I think, as we talk about it, to actually be thinking about this is a window into the kingdom of God, and I get to be a participant in that. I get to be a part of that in whatever way. And so as the Lord gives to us, we have that privilege to be a part of that. I think of even Paul, he talks about the church in Macedonia who gave even out of their poverty, because they were like, we want, please let us be a part of this blessing. Don't rob us of our blessing. We don't have a lot, but we still want to participate. And in that way. And honestly, it's easy. I've only been here 2 years, and already it's easy for me to start to adjust what I think is normal, and realize, man, Southern California is one of the wealthiest places on the planet. I've gone to a lot of places around the world, and you just get used to that here. You're like, oh, this is just what life is. And you just, I think the Lord reminds me and lifts my eyes beyond my local area to the need that's very real.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I encourage you, Foothill, to jump on in, get involved with the Send campaign if you haven't already. You can do that. Just visit foothill.church/send. We'll have a link in the show notes as well. But definitely check that out, and be prayerful with how you can get involved. Speaking of prayer, Andrew, how as we wrap up here, what are a few ways that we as a church can continue to be praying for you guys?
Okay, I'm going to give you some church stuff, and then I'll give you I'll give you the kind of the church wide stuff I want you to pray for, and then there's a couple of things, just specific things that in our church are happening that really need prayer. So I think for the one thing I always ask for is that just pray for God to save people. That's what every time we gather together as a church to pray for anything, we always pray for our lost friends and family to come to know Jesus. We pray that every time. We teach our kids to pray that. That's why the church exists, right? So the world would know the glory of God. So pray for that. Really pray for our partnership with the local food bank. We've kind of adjusted how we've done that. We really wanted to invite the local community to join with us in that, so they get an opportunity to donate food to people who are really in need. But then we get to figure out what the needs are in the community as well as that happens. You understand? And then also we're just chatting to people, and there's mission opportunities in that. And we did the first kind of collection day a couple of weeks ago, and the response from the community was overwhelming. And we had some people who, like you were saying, you really can't probably afford to give much. You're bringing a bag of groceries, and then we get to sit and have a cup of tea with them and talk and all that kind of stuff. So do pray for that we would see real gospel fruit from that. And then thirdly, we're in the most kind of racially and probably economically diverse part of Belfast. And one of the things we've been just praying about over the last, really this year, is that our church would begin to look like the community, right? This is what we're going to see in the kingdom, every tribe, tongue, and nation. And also, so I've been saying this over and over again at our church. Matthew 28, Great Commission, Jesus says, all authority in heaven and earth is given unto me. Go therefore, because of his authority, and make disciples of all nations. He doesn't necessarily tell us to go to all nations, but he tells us to make disciples of all nations. And we have multiple nations coming to even this wee small corner of the north of Ireland, right? So we want our church to look like that. So we're trying to figure out how we can reach out to our Muslim friends and neighbors and people a lot of them are nominally Muslim. There's a culture difference, all that kind of stuff. So we're trying to work out how we can do that. So pray for that would be great. And then the kind of more specific stuff, I know that is quite specific. One of the members of our church, he has a business in this city in the city center of Belfast. He's a graphic designer, so
Hey.
yeah, they're usually good people.
Yeah.
And this building that his studio was in was kind of like an art center, really old building. And last week it burnt down.
Wow.
And someone intentionally set it on fire.
Wow.
And so, yes, of course, there's need there that we're hoping to help meet and all that kind of stuff. But really pray that God would use this and use him to really be a gospel light in that's a really kind of progressive liberal crowd that he is daily a witness in, but there's an opportunity for him to suffer well in this. Pray for him and pray that would open up doors for us we've been talking a lot about opportunities, me and him, like what are the opportunities in this? Like Christians don't see tragedy. We do see tragedy, but we see opportunities. Yeah. God, what are you doing here? That's our question. Lord, what are you doing here? So are there ways for us to reach into that community and support people who think that we're their enemy, right?
Yeah.
And so really pray for that. And then also, I think I've said this every time I speak to anyone from your church. A friend of mine called Jerry, who doesn't know Jesus, he's almost 70 now. Actually, he might be over 70. He's had a tough life and blah blah blah. I don't need to go into details on this podcast, but pray that Jesus would save him. Yeah. Because I almost believe that Jesus can't save him. He's like too far gone. That's a doubt in my head. So pray. Yeah. Keep praying for Jerry. It's been 10 years of a relationship with an old drunk dude on the street, like in the pub, but God is able, right?
Absolutely.
So
I know you've brought up Jerry a lot. I think ever since I met you,
talking about him.
And it's super cool. I love your love for him, and I think just super encouraging, just the way you just love and care for South Belfast. So thank you, Andrew, for coming on. Thanks, Lucas, and
cheers for having me.
Yeah, we're so encouraged by you, and we love this partnership. We love you guys over at Village South.
Okay, set clear. Stations, everyone.